Yes, is of my fraternity family.
My name is Abena Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
You, Dennis, we can't hear you. Dennis, we can't hear you. We got none of that.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
It's a warm welcome to Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be talking really tough on recent or current issues happening in our country. Number one, the House of Representatives, they call them the majority bloc, elects a new speaker. And so the current speaker or the speaker of the 55th legislature, or former, some may say, Speaker Funati Koffa, has gone to the Supreme Court saying the people are operating illegally. Stop them, Supreme Court. Also, the 2025 national budget is out. What's in it? Public sector investment. How much is it? How much on recurring expenses? People, the VP budget, the president's budget, the speaker's budget, and the pro tem budget. They say they finished taking almost everything. We're going to examine it. That's why we have all the guys that are here. Also, the judge in the Samuel Tweah and others case is giving the government 72 hours to give the evidence they have against former Minister Samuel Tweah and others, or the case be thrown out. Of late, the government has been giving excuses, and they have not been going to court to have this matter investigated and prosecuted. With me to discuss this, we have FOL resident economist, Mr. Thomas Kana, who is joining us from the nation's capital, Monrovia. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Dennis.
Let me welcome Mr. Jimmy Eastman, who is joining us from the nation's capital, DC. Welcome, Jimmy.
He's glad to be here, Dennis.
Also from the nation's capital is the veteran, senior panelist right here on Focus on Tough Talking Thursday, Dr. Abdullah Dukli. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you, Dennis. Good to be here.
Great. Let me welcome also Attorney Wanda Konyene Fremont. He's an economist, a financial crime specialist, also an attorney. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Good to be here.
Last and definitely not the least is Mr. William Gibson, the tech guru and business guy. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. When it's Thursday, it's Tough Talking Thursday. And so let's talk tough. Let's start with the budget. We will put the politics aside that this was submitted to the majority bloc, or according to Speaker Koffa, he said they seized it. It was not really given to them, it was addressed to me, but they seized it. But let's look at some numbers here. Let me bring in Tom here. I want us to quickly look at some numbers, and then Tom will give us a synopsis of what is going on here. So that's the fiscal budget 2025. We have, as the national budget, compensation for employees, just some things to look at. We also have our recurring versus the public sector. You can see the numbers there, 2024 compared to 2025, and so on. And that's how the pie, that big chunk there is going to salary and other recurring expenses. Tom, you've been calling for ways that the budget be presented. Last year, when they were first presented, it was something coming over from the previous administration. This one is owned by the Unity Party government. I know it's too soon to go through all the numbers, but what are you seeing has the major difference from the last budget to this one?
Thank you, Dennis, and hi to all the listeners. So in terms of format, it's the same. This is the same line item budgeting that we have done in Liberia over the past decades. But there is a commitment in the budget here for the government to transition to program budgeting that we've been talking about. So that's clearly stated in there. So we have to see, hopefully in the next 1 year or 2 years, how that transition can actually take place for us to move from line item budgeting to program budgeting.
What's the difference?
So program budgeting is a kind of budgeting where you focus on results rather than on activities. So we basically pay for results in program budgeting. So if, for instance, we are giving money to the Ministry of Education, we want them to clearly define what results they want to achieve. Do they want to increase the test score? Do they want to reduce the number of kids that are out of school? So those results are defined. And then there are indicators that help us track whether they are making progress against those results that they have defined. And so when we give them money, our eyes are on those results to see whether they are achieving it at the end of the year. But at this point in time, that's not done. We just ask them, what do you want to do? We want to renovate schools and all of that. And we gave them the money. So basically, we are paying for activities and not really focusing on what results will be achieved. But program budgeting helps you to be able to address that problem.
So,
John?
so let me go to a community here. Let's look at the numbers. We're asking Tom about the differences here. If we look at the numbers, there had been
Dennis.
a little increase in.
Dennis?
Yeah.
1 second. Before you go to the numbers, normally when we open a budget, we go to the numbers. But there are other things that these numbers depend on. So if you go to the beginning of the budget, there's a macroeconomic overview that is given.
Right.
So it is really on that overview that these numbers, they are all projections, that these projections are based on. And one of the key important point of reference you have to look at is the growth rate. So it's projected in this budget that Liberia, the economy is going to grow by 5.8%. And in the medium term, between 2025 to 2027, it will be around 5.9%. So it's actually that growth rate that is used to be able to project revenue. So once that growth rate is not achieved, then all of those revenue figures you see, whether it's public sector investment, whether it's compensation in the public sector, it will be difficult to maintain those figures if we cannot achieve that growth. So I just wanted to highlight that. I mean, before we go into the numbers, let's understand the bigger picture of it. The other key important thing to talk about is that domestic revenue is a major component of this budget. I think it's projected to be around 791. That will be the first time we'll be hitting that amount. This year, at the close of this year, LRA has said that they are hoping to hit the 700 million target. So if we go 791 next year, then that is an increase, and we are moving gradually towards this whole issue of $1 billion. So overall, in that revenue envelope of 851, we have 791 that is projected as our own revenue that we'll collect. And then others will come from other sources, which include budget support that we got and some other support that we get from our development partners and all of that. There are also some fiscal rules that have been set that will be good for me to highlight. One of it is that previously, the utilities that these government agencies use, like LEC, it has all been paid for from the Ministry of Finance. It has been centralized. So if NPA, if Governance Commission, they are using LEC, the Ministry of Finance was the one that was paying. In this budget, what the ministry is saying is that they are now devolving those payments to the individual ministries. And I think the plan is that they should prepay before they even get these services. So if you want water from Water and Sewer, yourself as a ministry will prepay for it. It will not only be centralized at the Ministry of Finance, because the Ministry of Finance has a lot of challenge in actually determining whether people use it, how much they use, and the bills that went to them, whether they were realistic. So these are changes that have been happening. And then the other thing to say is that this budget was developed mirroring the 5-year development plan that's supposed to come up, I think, at the end of this month or early next month. So even though it has not been finalized, but they use that framework to be able to develop this budget. So maybe I can stop here for now, and then we can go to the numbers.
Yeah. And before you stop there, to what extent, we look at these projections, right?
Mm-hmm.
The growth of the real GDP. To what extent have we been able, because normally after the budget is passed and we do all that, we really don't come back to see what's happening. To what extent have these numbers really come true?
Well, the thing about these projections is that when you are making these projections, you make assumptions. So one of the assumptions that you make is that there is not going to be any external shock. Say, for instance, if the crisis in the Middle East persists and supply chains get affected, goods and services don't get here, the shipping routes become a problem, then we will not be able to achieve the 5.8% growth that has been forecast. If you look down in the budget, every time a growth is forecast, they tell you where that growth is going to come from. And the sectors they mention in the budget are the mining sector. And then they say public investment projects. And then they say on the industry side, they say construction. So if anything happened to the prices of iron ore and rubber, it's going to affect this growth projection. So we don't expect any external shock that will affect these projections. We also don't expect internal problems. Let's say there's a demonstration that takes place, or there is a flood that takes place that causes the road, people are not able to move, then these projections will be affected. So this is why I said from the beginning, all those revenue figures, they are hinged on that growth projection. But until the assumptions change, we expect that we can be able to achieve the growth projection. If we not achieve it, then we have to come back to revise the budget. This is where you hear the recast and recast and recast.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony Freeman,
Yeah.
are there hopeful signs looking at the budget?
I don't want to say so because there isn't a significant departure from what has happened in the past. There isn't a commitment to transparency. When I say significant departure, they have this ability to like start with what you received the last time, and then incrementally they take a little bit off or add a little bit more. Honestly, where Liberia finds itself, Liberia needs a rethinking about what is public service, a rethinking about the size of the government, a rethinking of what we want to do in terms of infrastructure development and services for the country. So instead of saying Ministry of maybe, let's say Ministry of State, whatever, you have 10 million last year, so we'll give you 2 or 3 million difference. You start with what is it the people deserves? How much does it cost? And then before you go that way, the reason I'm saying this is that if you look at some of the troublesome areas that have prevented ordinary citizens from benefiting from their country's wealth, none of those have changed. Like, for example, the places we waste the money, Presidential Affairs Ministry, NSA, SSSN, how do you call it, ESS, Executive Security Service, the National Legislature. You don't see any significant changes. So if you don't see significant movement in those kinds of allocations, it's obvious that what they had last year is just a trimming, what we call in finance like a haircut. You know, you just trim around the hair, but everything is still intact. So I'm not very hopeful. I guess over the course of the discussion, we'll go in some of the details of the numbers, but there wasn't a new thinking brought to the budgeting process, and we're going to have more of the same. That's my initial assessment.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, you know, by the time the budget comes up, we are, you know, focused on few numbers here and see what's changing, right? So one of it is what I spoke about later on, recurring expense and what goes on to our public sector development. There have been a little increase from 95 million to 106 million, and that's why I was asking for. But another thing that has come up, and the politician and businessman Simeon Freeman criticized, that is what is going to the president's office, the vice president's office, the pro tem, and the speaker. Then you understand why the fight is so much in the speaker's office. But something that is also interesting is the vice president budget is more than the president's budget. Looking at these numbers, what jumped out of you?
I mean, just from the numbers alone, it doesn't seem as if the cost that's attached to operating these various levels, from the president and vice president, the Senate pro temp, the Speaker of the House, it seems as if that number is not going down. So there's no true regard for what needs to happen in terms of taking less money away from those areas to infuse it into other important areas that need to advance when we talk about the arrest agenda, with agriculture, roads, the health sector, you name it, tourism. So diverting some of those funds to those areas would have probably been a little better. I think you don't need such a high amount to run some of those offices. For starters, probably cutting back on some of the travels that they do. What's the true importance of some of the travel that they're doing when we talk about the Senate pro temp and the Speaker of the House abroad to come and speak at some of these conferences? It's what's the relevance? Because I remember the last a couple segments ago, we were discussing the Senate pro temp traveling to China to talk about combating something with illiteracy. and then being this spokesperson for that, and giving a speech on that topic. So again, it's all about the relevance of some of these travels that they're doing. I think maybe looking at that budget and trying to take some of that out and having them on ground, right? If it's not something that's going to really move the agenda of whatever they're trying to do in terms of creating more relationships with other countries, it's really no significance in having such a bloated pay for, or a budget for that area. I think there needs to be a decrease from the top and then trying to work some of that to the bottom to help with the main issues or areas that need to be focused on when it comes to education and increasing what's given to the health sector.
Dr. Douglas, we will say, nothing has changed. Really, what can change? I mean, we don't have it. I mean, what else can we do with this budget? I hope you're understanding me, right? It's it is what it is, right?
Well, it is what it is, but I think what Freeman has spoken about is very important. That's, the change of policy direct, to change course. When you come into a new government and you have an agenda, I think your first budget should have been prepared. I mean, these people should have been working on a budget from last year, although they don't, they were not in control of the state, but they should have been working on these things. And by the time they get to office, they review the old budget. They say, okay, these are the changes we're going to make according to our policies. But this budget, as everybody is saying here, is like shifting few numbers here and there, cut here and there. Maybe you could also say, okay, since it took so long to get the government together, maybe this is not really the first budget of Buckeye. This is a rescued budget of George Weah that he just took and then shifted around. And then next year, after he has getting command of the process, after he has known what the country really needs, then he will come up with a new budget where he will say, no Liberian working in the government will make more than $6,000. And the president will not spend more than $5 million a year. So those kind of things. I hope, I pray, I dream.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, to what extent, not at the time of this budget, the House is, and we're going to discuss what's going on in the House, but does it, with all the things that are happening around the political thing, does it really make it hard for us to really see where the priority of the government lies in the budget? Because if you look in the budget, are we spending too much on, more on security because of this reason? Are we spending this on health? But it's like we are in too many things are going on at once. That will that make it hard for us to see how the government priority is reflected in the budget, or we just say let's just get
right. Not really, Dennis. If any organization like the World Bank or the IMF were to review our budget, they would have the same opinion. Tom mentioned it, and you didn't see the pain that was in him when he was talking about it. We do not show what we plan to produce given what we will give them. So in other words, there's no performance, there's no target, there are no goals that have been stipulated so that we know what we're going after. So after that being said, when you look at the proportion given to recurrent expenses to government, you know very well when we're not on track of changing the trajectory in Liberia. We're not on track. Freeman was talking about the same thing. We're doing the same thing over and over again. And for economists like Tom, it hurts him. He feels a pain because this is not how we change our trajectory. So what we have It's a political budget. It's only there to cater to the political desires of those who are in power. They should get the fabulous salaries. They should get the cars, the gas slips, the various emoluments that have been given to them at the expense of the university, at the expense of agriculture, at the expense of health. They don't care. And they do it every single time. Now, should the chief executive take a recourse and deny our distribution to the legislature and other interests of the political elite, he will face a peril. We see this going on right now. If you try to change things in favor of the people instead of in favor of the political elite, you will see a political turmoil. So this budget is nothing but a rubber stamp of what we've been doing. There's nothing changed, nothing different. So we shouldn't expect anything else. I would have thought that the Buckeye administration would have decided that we need to take a different course and challenge the status quo, challenge the representatives and the political elite, that we need to give more to development, to bringing our building capacity, building roads and other agriculture projects, instead of providing more to salaries. But he has not done that. And until we do that, things will remain the same.
So Dennis, let me come in quick to just give a picture of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So we are going to the second year in which the president hasn't rolled out his development plan. When you take over a country and you say that country was being, like destroyed, you got a development plan, maybe in the different sectors in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social development, you got a different plan, you price it. Then you see, you have a time frame that you're working with, and after you price it, then you now start to move that pricing into time frames. So if you have priced maybe the energy sector and you have priced the road, and you say maybe, let's say 500 million, whatever, and you say, okay, maybe in the first 2 years, I'm going to do the first 50% or something like that. Then you start to scale back on some of the wasteful spending. But that's not how they start the budget. Like I told you, because I've been a financial controller in the government, they start a budget with what do you have? And then they say, okay, we'll take a little bit from you or we'll give you a little bit, sometimes depending on who you are able to negotiate with at the national legislature. That's why you see, because some institutions have no justification for their budget. And so if you start with what do you have, let me add or subtract, you're not going to get there. So if there's some institution have no justification, you have to decide what you're going to do with some of these institutions, what you're going to do with somebody else. The second thing is transparency. We are going to the second year in which we don't know what are the salary structure of the VIPs in government. They tell the common people to take $150. That's good for you. But we need to know how much they are making, because as far as we know, some of them are making up to 100,000. And like I did a calculation, 100,000, an average government worker will have to work 56 years in order to make 1 year salary of the government VIP. That is unconscionable. After all, the funds in the country belongs to everybody. So that's what I'm saying. So you have to have a development plan that you price. But now they didn't price the development plan in the first year. We are in the second year, they have not yet priced the development plan. So what time they will start to allocate it? So those are the problems. So they're just tinkering, like I said, it's like a haircut. You go to the place and say, I like my style the way it is, just chip around the edges, and and that's it. That's what they're doing with the budget. It's not helping. You will see people will continue to remain very poor in that country for a long while.
So before I go to Tom, before you come in, so what should be done, Freeman?
The first thing is their development plan. This is the second year. Why don't they have a price development plan?
It's coming up.
Why don't they have a roadmap?
They say they have.
And then when you break up the development plan into chunks, then you say, okay, since we have maybe let's say 5 years, let's work on 5 years. Since we have 5 years, and now this is the first 1 to 2 years, what part of that plan we need to implement? When you have a clear-cut goal as to what you want to implement, then you know what to cut off. You know the unnecessary. That's how you get to the unnecessary. But if you don't have a development plan that you have priced, it's like, I don't know what you call you groping in the dark. And you're not going to get out of it. You might chip here and there, but it's not going to work. That's what I'm saying. Maybe Tom can say more, but I mean, that's the mindset I want people to look at.
But they say they have a development plan coming up.
They're not using it for this current budget.
No,
it's still coming up.
Yeah. Well, it's
but that is the problem because we have 1 year gone. They didn't tell all the development plan. They didn't tell all the pricing, the time frame. Now this is the second year that is going to go without us knowing what the development plan is, what the pricing, and what the time frame.
When the Minister of Finance at PA, he said was the budget was based on that. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I mean, the development of the budget is a scientific process. There's a lot of science that is embedded in it. So normally when we hear about the budget, people start to talk about it when it's going to the legislature. But it goes through a lot of processes before it goes to the legislature. So normally the budget development process starts with revenue forecasting. So you look at the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance got different units. So you have the Deputy Minister for Economic Management that is responsible for all growth issues, all the GDP growth and all of that. It is that Economic Management unit that takes care of all of that, revenue forecasting and all of that. And then you have the Deputy Minister for Fiscal Affairs that takes care of tax policy and all of that. Then you have the Deputy Minister for Budget and then Administration. So the whole budget process actually starts with revenue forecasting. So you look at your growth data for the past 5 years, the past 10 years, you look at your revenue data, then you do revenue forecasting. You forecast your revenue, you come up with the envelope that based on how we are going to grow this year, we think our revenue will be maybe 700 million or 800 million. When that envelope comes up, then the Ministry of Finance got something they call circular. They then send that circular out to the different ministries and agencies and say, based on these revenue envelopes that we have, how much you think we are going to spend this year? And this is the slight difference between this line item budgeting and the other budgeting that has to do with a medium-term expenditure framework, which is what Anthony Freeman was talking about. Normally, it's medium-term expenditure framework that helps you connect the annual budget spending to your long-term priorities and goals in 5 years or 6 years. It connects the two. But I just wanted to point out that it's not like, okay, we just add $5, we just add $10. There's a bit of scientific work that goes on in the background with this revenue.
Come on, man. Look at the budget. I mean, you don't have to be an economist to know that it's just tinkering around the edges that they're doing. That's fine.
No, what I'm saying to you
but
is
also
that
there's also a problem. Tom, listen to me very carefully. You're a young man, and I want to tell you there's a problem.
You just cut the man. Oh, let me finish.
No, I don't want it to be presented that you can get a budget to people to the Atari Center tomorrow. They can do it by just adding small things. These are trained people at the Ministry of Finance. They are trained people at the LRA that do a lot of technical work before these numbers can come out. The tinkering, you can go Ministry of Health, how much you spent last year? That's the way initially it used to be done. People can just add 5%, 10%, all of that. But today, if you look at any kind of macro-related stuff, scientific revenue forecasting is key, because if you don't do it, once you don't forecast your growth well, you don't forecast your revenue well, everything that comes down the line on the budget side, you have problem with it.
Look, Jimmy,
what I was trying to say,
Jimmy,
hold on. Let Jimmy go first, and then Dr. Dukley.
Yeah. So what I was saying, we have to think out of the box, Tom. This is what I'm saying. It is typical that you look at your revenue forecasting, but that's not the way we need to approach it. We are not producing. When you don't look at your forecast when you're doing terribly. In other words, you don't look, if you would give a football analogy, you don't look at your success of winning when you know very well you have bad offense. You have to think differently. So instead of looking at our forecast of how much currently we think we will make, we have to think, what can we invest in to grow our revenue? What are the areas that we need to put our limited resources into to grow the revenue? Not use the existing, that is just following the same pattern. And I think that is the mistake they have been making.
We gotta move to our next topic. So Dr. Dukley, quickly.
No, I'm just going to tell him briefly that, his scientific description of the budget process is good. But for me, I look at the bottom line. I say, how much you give into agriculture compared to how much you give to the Minister of State, and how much you give to education and compared to how much you give to the House. To the layman, that's what matters. That process, who does the what? We know people, no knowledgeable people do that. You got people with PhDs, all of that behind the scene preparing this. But to the layman like me, I say, okay, Minister of State get $20 million and University of Liberia get $10 million. What does that make sense to anyone? So this is what we're talking about. I mean, I like the scientific description, but it doesn't give me water to drink.
One second. So there are two separate things here, right? I didn't want this impression to go out that this is a minimal work that can be done by anyone. I just wanted to point out that there is some science behind it. On the side of what you are talking about is on the expenditure side, and historically in Liberia, our expenditure has not been efficient because our allocation is not efficient. And Jamie was talking about something. Even if you are not producing, you are not doing anything, you still have to do the forecast, regardless of what you are doing. You still have to do the forecast. But on the expenditure side, this is something that is still being spoken about. This is something even the World Bank and other institutions repeatedly, they assess our expenditure because our allocations, in many instances, they are not efficient. The place we put the money, we use everything to pay salaries, and in the end, the economy will not grow. And therefore, we keep with this 700 million budget every year. So on the expenditure side, I agree with you. The efficiency is very low.
Thank you for that clarity. Talking about expenditure side, Simeon Freeman Cruz, I say, look, the president office alone is allocated 3 million. The VP office is 3.8 million. The speaker office is 1.9 million, and the Senate pro tem is 1.5 million. So I wanted to ask Tom, what's the science behind it? But you said the science is on the revenue side, not the expenditure side. So I like that.
No. Even the expenditure side, that science, they can do expenditure forecasting. You have to do the forecast and all of that. So everything here has science behind it.
Dennis, all I think is just pretense. I told you I work as finance manager at the Governance Commission. It's just pretense. Look, the science start to arithmetic, addition, subtraction. Dennis, look at the figures. Look at it. If you say you come to rescue, it means you came to do things differently. So you start to apply common sense, like Dr. Dukley was saying.
No, that's a political question. The technocrats can do that and do the science that Tom is talking about, and yet the political question can be what you are talking about.
But the political question is precedent to the technocrats.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's where the direction comes from.
No,
I say, for example, let me just give you a case in point. I want to pave 50 or 100 kilometers of road in 2025. It's my priority. So I cut that off from the budget first and allocate it. Before I start thinking what will go to presidential affairs, what will go to national security agency, and what will go to VP office. So that's the rethinking people should have. But I was part of that process. I'm telling you, look at the figures. You will see, I don't want to go back. You just look at the figure. You will see that it's just a plus and minus arithmetic. There is no extra science. The only science is the computer people who got to put a figure in. Maybe they apply computer science. But in terms of thinking, no. So you have to have a different, this man say he's going to push agriculture. How can you give National Security Agency more money than the entire agriculture industry? That is what we have to do differently, and we are not doing it differently, and we say we keep the rescue, and it's contrary to the political premise.
Thank you. That takes us to our next topic. We have a minute to discuss here tonight. Our next topic, which is the House election.
And the problem there, you told me scientifically you want to go to the house thing.
Yeah, well, that's part of the science, right?
That's part of the science there, because at the House people. So the House elect new speaker, right? And they say, in fact, it started by saying they fired some people, or suspended them, they changed committee heads and all kinds of things. So Speaker Koffa has gone to the Supreme Court again. Let me start with the attorney. Attorney, do they have, the majority bloc have any power without the two-third majority to remove the speaker? Do they have any other power to replace him?
In the Constitution, the two-third is applicable to removal of the speaker from office and expulsion. Sometimes the way people think about the Constitution, you need to think about the Constitution as roots, branches, and leaves. So the Constitution is like the root. Now the Constitution says the House of Representatives can make their own rules. So when they make a rule, that rule arises out of the Constitution, and that rule is an extension of the Constitution. It may be called other law, but it's an extension. So arising from that power in the Constitution that the House can make their own rules.
But that can't violate the Constitution, though. I want to make that clear.
No, when they make it, there is a presumption that it's constitutional unless somebody can go to court and the court can declare it unconstitutional. So unless it's taken to court and the court says it's unconstitutional, there is a presumption that it's constitutional.
Okay.
Okay. So they made the rules and they say they will need the simple majority, they will have the presiding officer, and they will go about and do business. That's the rules. I doubt if the Supreme Court is going to interpret their rules, because that would be like a political question that they put. And mind you, there is a certain legal doctrine that the court operate in what we call the ordinary man's standard. Ordinary man's standard. So the court is not likely to come out with anything very strange, because mind you, stability of the country is also in the interest of the court. So they may go to court, they might get a ruling here and there for them, but the court is not going to answer the fundamental political question as to whether or not the people who crown Koffa as speaker and now say they don't want him, whether the court can solve that problem. I doubt that.
Right. No, but do they have the power constitutionally to remove him without a two-thirds majority?
But I thought they said they have 50 members or something.
Yeah, they say they have 50 now. So
no,
50.
No,
they 50
already removed him without the 50.
No, they have, because they needed only 49, which was two-thirds. They 73 members. So two-thirds is 49. They said they have 50.
That was not, the 50 was not the one used to remove him. That's what I'm saying.
How many they use?
No, because they in fact they took that to plenary when they asked to put that in vote to declare his office vacant.
Yeah.
So it's not the two-thirds.
Okay, but I don't know. But I know the Constitution says two-thirds, and that's 49. The only other question I see there is that he could take to court, and the court will look at it, whether he was given an opportunity to be heard, to challenge the evidence against him.
They said they called him, but he didn't show up.
Oh, that one, he know he cry, won't cry. If they call you and you don't show up, that's you on your own. So whatever it is, you have to go there, and then from there you can possibly appeal or whatever. But if you go there, if you fail to go there, you are waiving your right to due process the forum can make a decision contrary to your interests. So that's why I think they could answer some of the legal questions, but the fundamental political question, they will not answer that question.
Tom, you are in Monrovia. You said they had a resolution that was signed by 50 signatories, according to Sam. Now, some of those people we saw in the news, they said they are withdrawing their signature. What's actually happening on the ground in Monrovia over there?
I think when you're far off, you understand better what is happening here than when you are in Monrovia. Because they have a couple of resolutions. No one knows which resolution they are referring to at this point in time. I think the last one I came up today, I think it's a combination of removal and dissolution of committees that were already set up because they had suspended some members. So Capitol Hill is just too fluid to be able to really understand what is happening. Like you said, the 50 number they were talking about, it includes people who had withdrawn and said they were going back to the Koffa block. And then some of the people who crossed over, the 3 persons who came over, the Koffa block is saying, okay, we only send them there to just go and play phone with you. They did not sign the resolution. So it's not clear exactly what the status is. Maybe when they go to court and the court comes in, they will be able to really establish what happened and the processes that they went through. So, and much of this happened today. The election, the motion to declare the office vacant, and all of that. So maybe hopefully in the next couple of days we'll clearly understand what is happening. But it has been very crazy up Capitol Hill.
Mr. Gibson, Richard Kuhn, who is now being crowned by the majority bloc, was the one President Bouaka wanted in the first place. Can President Bouaka, and he was voted on white ballot. Can President Bouaka and the Unity Party government actually say the henna inside?
I mean, again, going back to optics, the optics doesn't look like they weren't involved in this scheme, especially with having some of the cabinet ministers attend, I think, one of the sessions to speak with plenary or to pretty much submit to questioning that they had on I think it was water and sewer, internal affairs, and one other ministry or agency that was present for that visit. So I think based off the optics, they can deny all day long that they weren't a part of this scheme, but it's all too convenient that immediately after the motion was placed on the floor for them to remove the speaker, they now decided to rush after, I guess, I think they said they were going to take a couple weeks to decide who they wanted to nominate. But then they changed within the blink of an eye. They decided to go ahead and rush right into deciding who would be placed up for speakership. And that in itself was a bit surprising to see. But I mean, it's not all surprising when Unity Party is up on top for the speakership. So I don't think it's surprising to anybody that's in Liberia or even abroad in that sense, because they have a role to play in something like this.
Right, but they said when the speaker or deputy speaker Fala wanted to put that into a vote, they said they took it back to plenary.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, and I think also.
So I don't understand how you remove someone without a vote.
Right, and that's the thing. I think they're not doing anything off the books. They're trying to find loopholes within it to justify doing some of these things. Because if you don't have a vote that will occur, then what's the true reasoning for that? That why did you not want to have a vote occur for people to be able to say, okay, this person was there, even with the whole thing of saying that they have 50, but the original list. A lot of those people who had originally signed that paper decided to say, I want to withdraw my signature. So it brings a lot of things into question as far as their reasoning for doing some of these things, because if you're trying to do something by the books, you'll want to follow what is stated rightfully in the Constitution or within the bylaws. So that's my take on that.
Dr. Dukley, I mean, with how things going down, why were 11 or so CDC member want Richard Kuhn as their speaker. I mean, what's going on? Are you as confused as I am?
No, I'm not confused. I'm liking this. I like the chaos. I like the democracy, at play as we see it. I mean,
You
this
call
is
that
beautiful.
democracy?
Yeah, this democracy is, the whole process. I mean, people are not fighting the street. They're not throwing rocks at each other. They're not burning houses. They're talking and they're taking lawyers. They're going to court. This is the process. This is what we call democracy. It may sound stupid, but this is how it works. You've got chaos, and in that chaos, there's a silver lining. And now the silver lining in this whole thing is we all know now from the accusation from the speaker, Koffa, against the majority, and from the majority against speaker, we know the extent of corruption in the House. First, we're just assuming, now we know. Now we can ask LACC, GAC, and all these agencies to get on the back of the House to know what is going on. Now we know the depth of the so this is good. It's good for us. So the chaos goes on, and for Boakai, as I always say, every president in any democracy want to have the House Speaker on their side. That's how agenda works. That's how it works in democracy.
But why is he not upfront
So
about
that,
it?
do you want a speaker?
You can be upfront about it. I'll give you an example. If you came to me, you are in the House, you say, Mr. President, I can remove this guy and then I can give you a speaker that you want. And I would say, no, man, get away. I don't want to get involved in that. And after you leave, I'll call one of my advisors. I say, follow Dennis. Let's see what he really on. And that's how it goes and how much he needs. Because every president wants to have a speaker on his side. Don't play with it. Either they come up directly to do it or they push it. They push the flames in the back. They do it everywhere in the world, in a democracy. France just did it. Macron just sabotaged his own elections.
No, I got a challenge to that point.
Yeah, you can challenge it, but that's a reality. I was in
no. Do you, if you don't have majority members, do you still want to produce a speaker when you don't have majority members of your party? Is that how it works?
Yeah, but if
you can have a speaker without majority,
why not? If the people vote for, if you have somebody with consensus, everybody CDC say, okay, we like him, he talked to us, and then NPP say the same thing. Why not? It can happen. We all agree on one president. Why can't we all agree on one speaker?
Jimmy,
so okay, beyond that though, let me add one thing that I like personally that I'm watching, which is the big fight among the lawyers, the legal battle that's going on in the background between guys like Cabinet Jane, who was housed by the same speaker, and then Mr. Vani Sherman, who is now fighting for Koffa. Koffa has been hired by Ellen to prosecute Vani Sherman. You see, hold this game on, and then what the media is doing in the background. So this is what I'm saying. It's democracy at play. Don't be impatient. Nobody is stupid. They'll come together. They'll find the thing. They'll get a speaker, and the country will go back our way.
I mean, Jimmy, with Kuhn being defeated before, and we learned that they were trying to even give money, right? With Kuhn coming back, and when this was announced about all the different things that Fonati have done, right? They had a resolution. People were hopeful. Oh well, maybe things are trying to change. But with the white ballot election of Richard Kuhn, what does that tell you as to where we are going? Does it speak to the sincerity? Because I don't know how much different Richard Kuhn would be from Fonati Koffa.
Dr. Dukley hit it on the nail at the end of his statement. It is all about what President Boakai wants. We remember when this whole speaker thing was contested, it was between Kuhn, supported by the UP, and Fonati Koffa, supported by the CDC. So now we see, after Fonati Koffa had won, 10 months later, there is a coup to get rid of him. It is the same perpetuation of the onslaught to put Kuhn there as a speaker. There's nothing different. It's the same thing. And he may have succeeded initially, but yet today he has a fight on his hand. And the way he handled himself in his brief 10-month period determined how well this fight is going. So I don't see anything different. This is what the president wanted in the beginning, and is what he wants now. So what we're seeing is just that if we do not respect the laws that we're supposed to live by, this is a dangerous precedent, because it could breed other sort of agitation, misconduct, and stuff like that. So as much as they want to put Kuhn as the speaker, we understand that. But if you do not follow the proper procedures, you are opening Pandora's box. And tomorrow, there may be another group that will get up and say we're opposing the the unilateral vote, and that may cause problems. So that's all I see. But this is just what was wanted in the beginning, and they're getting it now in less than a year.
But Jimmy,
the speaker, the pro tem or the Senate say, well, this time we are not joining with you for the budget because you got too much trouble in there. Dr. Dukley, is that a way of, Yumley saying town trap is not for rat alone, or they want to keep
Yumley
saying, hey, you guys are playing dirty, we don't want to be a part.
Well, Koffa and Yumley are from same Bromskin,
Liberty
Party, Liberty Party originals. I mean, so, and then also I think, you don't want to officialize, because once they do it, then it becomes official that So I think they know that Fonati has not exhausted all his, legal ways out. So they give him a chance to do that. Because once they do that, if they discuss the budget with the majority, that means officially, Kofi Konati is out. Either he's sitting in the office of the speaker or not. But by doing this, they probably want to give him time to go back to the Supreme Court as he's doing. But I'm not sure the Supreme Court will go into the House and say, okay, this is how you're supposed to do your rules, and this is how you're supposed to interpret your rules. Huh?
I said they should be able to tell us whether the election that brought Kuhn to power is legitimate or not. They should be able to do that.
No, that's a majority. That's their majority. You can, people
argue. If the Constitution says vote them out by 2/3 and you don't go by that, how would the Supreme Court sit by and say it's okay?
Dennis, we're playing with words. The reality is Fonati Koffa has lost power in the House. He's going to delay his departure to make a legal point. Media, lawyers will get their thing, everybody will eat some, and then at the end of the day, he's going to go. Because when 43 people, even 40 people out of 70 sit down and take a piece of paper and sign it and say, we want to remove you, either they change their mind later on or not. The reality is you have more than the majority of you people against your administration. So that's a fact. So we're going to play all this technicality, they're going to contact, they're not supposed to do that. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Speaker Fonati cannot reassemble this House and have a command of it. It's not going to happen.
And Dennis, let me just say something here. This is not a contractual arrangement where the House rule for you and you have a fixed contractual term that you got to finish. This is a parliamentary system in which they operate on majority numbers. Even for the speaker to sit down in his seat, he has to have that majority. So even if they rule for him on a legal point, he still got to go back to the hall and call a quorum.
Yeah.
And if he can call a quorum, he's out. You know, it's just like in Africa, we have this sometimes, I would say, backward mentality. We don't look at things, you know, from a realistic standpoint. We just put ourselves. And that's why Africa is poor, because it's just me, myself, and I, just me and my family. That's all. But if you're looking at the general good, you say, well, the essence of a speaker is that you are able to convene a body. You are able to have a quorum. And if you can't muster the quorum, you are not a speaker. You just speak on paper. You know, but he is putting his personal interest, his family interest, everything about him and his family before the people of Liberia. That's what I see.
And that's what all of them are doing, right?
Yes, but his case is even bad because in their case, they got a little number on their side backing them. In his case, he doesn't even have the number. So, I mean, what's the point? It's not a contract. It's not a contract. If it's a contract, the rule for you to say, okay, go finish your contractual term. That's not a contract. You have to have the numbers to preserve.
Yeah, and then you have to add something though, that, you know, each of these 43 members of the House are his equals. He's equal to them. They're not like, you know, somebody brought you here, the president appointed you, and then others are appointed by the minister. No, they were each elected. So he's not better than any of the 43 members who say, no, we don't want you as a leader. So that's the whole solution. That's the whole thing. People don't want you. Say, okay, I'm glad I served you. Goodbye. I'll save my money and then spend it on vacation with my family and then come back and do my work. Maybe focus more on my district.
Yeah. Tom, let's talk about President Boakai, right? Because there was a time that people thought that Funati Koffa was more, you know, was palling around with the president. They were going on conferences. He was refusing to bring some, you know, impeachment proceeding against him, as what we understood. He was being pressured to do so. I mean, you know, it's a politics not for children. But is Mr. Boakai really having a record of he and people working together, and then he just break away from them and, as somebody in the street would say, play them dirty? I mean, we saw with President Salif after at the end. I mean, President Salif was isolated. We saw in the CPP with Ure and Cummings, and then to people's surprise, he took on, you know, Costa, who made his living by doing those kind of things for a year. Wanted to throw him overboard. Now it was Funanti who was with him on conferences while they were in room. This other thing happened. Do you see a pattern here for President Boakai?
No, I think I can go back to all of the instances you mentioned. I mean, we're all here in 2017. Between he and the former president, even when the party was launching, Manaseri decided to go on her farm in Bomi. So I don't think it's all JB, like we affectionately call him. I don't think it's all his fault. I mean, if you go back to the Costa, he invested a lot into really making sure that President Boakai could run. But that deal about this million, that million, that was a major issue that happened. That's how they fell apart. On the one second. On the CPP issue, I can always say that those who led the CPP earlier, they were blessed in the sense that it wasn't close to the elections. By the time he took over, it was very contentious. Who was going to be the head? Who was going to be second? It would have been anyone. The CPP was either going to survive that moment or it was going to die, and it died. So I don't.
So Tom, you're trying to explain all 5 instances of betrayal?
I'm answering the question. You are only interpreting what I'm saying.
You're trying to explain all 5 or 6 instances of betrayal?
Yeah, because I remember everything.
The probability that there will be 6 instances of betrayal from one single individual you're explaining. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, let me finish.
So, to come to Dennis' point, on the Koffa issue, I think we had a show the other time I spoke about this. He was trying to play this balancing act, right? Even when the president was traveling a lot, I think he had gone to the US and they asked him a question, why is the president traveling a lot? And he said, oh, this is a poor country. The president needs to travel. Some of his followers, especially in the CDC, they thought he wasn't holding the president accountable. And on the impeachment thing, you said it was something that they wanted to put forth on the table. But the point I keep raising is that while he was doing all of that, like he was friendly with the executive, the laws that were submitted, every year the president submits his legislative agenda and submit a couple of bills. Many of these bills are still in committee room. They haven't come out. The only one they passed was the one on the President Transition Act. And my understanding was because NDI and other partners were behind that law. So he's not passing the critical bills that need to really move, whether it's economic growth, economic development, transition, the Ministry of Internal Affairs to local government. All of these bills are in committee room. So I think it's a kind of way that it can be read in two ways. You were a friend of the executive, but yet the laws that they send, they stay in committee room, they can't get passed. The bill to create the Ministry of or the Tourism Authority is still in committee room. It can pass, even though it's a pillar under the arrest agenda. So I think there is a lot of things that can be read into whether he was really a friend of the executive or really not.
Dennis, what it sounds like is a woman who is on her sixth marriage. She just about to divorce.
Why you don't say?
And she's telling you that all the husband that she had before wrong her and
someone getting married 6 times.
Say a man on the fifth marriage. Don't say a woman.
Yeah, a man on a fifth marriage, and he's telling you that my wife, she's very bad. I will divorce her and I will marry you. If you come to be the sixth wife, you just say, the other one here. I mean, look, my man, the thing is clear. The thing is clear. Wherever Baka leads, there is chaos follows. In like bro said, when chicken way. I know you try your best. I hope the people out there are convinced that Baka really not responsible. But when you go from Ellen, you go to Cummings, you go to Ure, you go to Costa, you just continue and you say that all the people were responsible, not Baka. Wow, my man, you really got some argument.
Maybe you've not been following.
Talking about that CPP, I always thought CPP, it was a bad idea anyway.
Yeah, and it's still
and may I interject? It is not so much the politics that is my concern. It is that you are not introducing, and Tom gotta see this. You are not introducing anything that will change the trajectory of the Liberian people. We are diving deeper and deeper into poverty, and there's nothing be done about it except we see people exploiting their positions and getting fabulous salaries, fabulous emoluments, while the everyday Liberian is suffering. So all this politicking has not benefited us, the ordinary Liberians. So we don't need this. All of this, we don't need it. It is not good for Liberia. It is just politics for themselves, for the elites. And we have seen before in our history when we got rid of the elites to address the everyday man. Here we are back here again. The elites are still taking advantage of us. So the politics doesn't really matter. It's the same story.
Thank you. And William, let me come to you there because there is a big picture, right? The government is President Bwaka's government. Now, things like Tom and I were talking about it before the show, like things like MCC scorecard are going to come up. They are looking at all these things. Well, if the government is in chaos, President Bwaka, this is your government. Nobody is going to look at Funati Koffa or Richard Kun or Kuga tomorrow. It's you, right? To what extent is the president really driving the agenda, taking leadership and making things to happen? I mean, because we're going to be rated on all these things that are happening, we're going to get into our last segment on the Tweah case. So what is the president doing about all this to really present his big picture agenda of the arrest?
So with that question, I think my answer will be it's still to be determined if there's a true person in the driver's seat, if it's the president or if it might be somebody else. From what we've been seeing as far as a leader who has been able to weed out the bad apples, quote unquote. We haven't seen that. He surrounded himself with people who, quite frankly, have had questionable character. And when you bring these people into your administration, that's when you see a whole lot of incidents that take place. There's a lot of things that have happened within the short time of him being in office, such as the scandal with the buses, in regards to the buses from Ghana, having somebody who's his political advisor who was involved in that, because people like to make side deals and bring these strange fellows into the country because they want to benefit. You create more scandal. You now have um, an internal affairs minister that's also involved in yet again another scandal. So, in regards to that question that you asked me about if he's indeed in charge of his own development agenda, I don't believe it. I don't think this is somebody who is sitting up at night and thinking about who is truly working in favor of the Liberian people. I don't believe it. I don't see it. Not in any of the actions he's taken, the slow actions that he's taken in even deciding who is going to be let go when these investigations are done about some of these scandals that come up. You just had him pretty much approve the dismissal of an individual who was flagging the Nicotech situation or scandal that was taking place. And he dismissed that gentleman because he was speaking out against the government and saying that he, quote unquote, did not follow proper protocol, but he did, in terms of reaching out to the internal people to ensure that that was brought to the forefront. But because people's interests supersedes the interests of the Liberian people, you see people who are truly invested in helping the Liberian people and calling these things out. They're put to the wayside and dismissed. I don't see a president who is in the driver's seat trying to change anything, but except keep it as business as usual.
Dr. Dukla, you were coming in before.
No, go ahead. It's okay.
Let me come in there, Dennis.
I was going to ask you the Koffa case at the Supreme Court. What you think going to come out of it? Then you can add that.
I think Fonati might score some legal points. It's possible because these guys are operating in like a haphazard manner. But on the legal points, he will score. Because the question,
give our people credit. You say they are operating in a haphazard manner?
Yes, because let me tell you why. When they had a case against Fonati, first thing they were supposed to document the charges and file it against him and set up a committee and ask him to submit himself. They didn't need to go to the Supreme Court for Supreme Court to tell them, say, give the man due process. Because due process is a fundamental principle of law, and there have been long series of Supreme Court cases in which the Supreme Court have reversed the action, telling them, allow this person due process. So if you have 4 or 5 cases of due process, you don't need to have the 6th case for them to tell you, say, you give the man due process. So I can see that they are happening in a haphazard manner because they started the whole removal thing before even filing, levying the charges, before even requesting him to submit himself for investigation. That should come first. So they are acting in a haphazard manner. So it's possible, especially when anything to do with taking away of an individual rights, you have to accord them an opportunity to be heard. You have to allow them to be represented by counsel and all those due process rights. So in some instances where those things were not done, the Supreme Court might reverse it. But that's not the question we are asking. We are asking, will this man be removed as a speaker? That question is a political question. There is no way that the Supreme Court will answer that question. And that's why I say, Koffa, those people don't have Liberia at heart. Because that man is a lawyer. He's been around for long. He knows that the Supreme Court will not answer that particular question. Who should be Speaker of the House? They will never answer that question. But he is willing to drag Liberia down, drag the whole country down, drag the budget down, just because of his personal interest. And this is annoying.
I'm not sure. I would say, I don't know if you will score some new points, because the whole point is, the whole objective is to stay as a speaker. He said, I'm going to resign if you bring 49 names up. But He's going to the Supreme Court. They say, no, we're not going to touch it the first time. He's going back again. They say, yeah, it's your structure. And then you can, we have this government thing, executive, judiciary, and legislative. They don't mix into each other business. Also, the Supreme Court supposed to say, okay, this is legal, it's not legal. But the first time they said, no, we're not going to get involved. So dragging people back to the Supreme Court is just a waste of time because at the end,
at the end of the day, the Supreme Court will want them to go into chambers to vote him out. And because probably
they can't say that. No, they cannot. The Supreme Court cannot tell them to go into chambers and vote.
They can go to the Boulevard Hotel or somewhere.
Wherever they want. They could just say, give him due process, let him respond. But due process could be, hey, we don't like your face today.
No, due process means you got to answer to it.
No, yeah, say, hey, we don't like your jacket. Okay, I bought it yesterday. Okay, so because of that, we're going to vote you out. They don't have to have a reason. That's the whole problem. People
no, they don't need a reason, but they need to meet and do it.
Yeah, but they meet every day.
That's the question I think the Supreme Court going to address, right? Can we leave where we used to meet and go to the ROJ hotel and then call you, say, come here, and I go there? Now, what they are saying, they are telling the president to strip him of his benefits.
RLJ in Maggie.
Yeah, that's when I said legal points. Those are the things I'm talking about.
Yeah,
because before
you sign the document and they meet in Maggie County, that's a problem.
No, they don't meet into RLJ. They only sleep there.
Okay.
They do all the meetings at the Capitol building.
But those are some of the points I was talking about. When he assessed scores on legal points, like they're taking away his salary or benefits, and without really according him due process, those are things Supreme Court will handle. But technically, that's not what we're discussing here. We're not wasting our time to find out whether he will get benefit or not benefit. We want to know who will be the Speaker of the House. That question can only be answered by the legislature, not the Supreme Court. And Fanatic knows. So why is he wasting the country time?
Thank you. Let's get to our last topic for the night.
Lawyers. Freeman. I said, you guys like
Freeman a lawyer.
He's a lawyer. I said, lawyers like to extend things. Keep going to court. Keep going to court. $500 an hour. So why not?
Because they want to do that until the president had to appear before the joint chambers to present the state of the nation.
Get paid. Everybody want to get paid. If I were a lawyer,
let's look at the Tweah and other case.
Okay.
Right. Tom, I wanted you to, before I even go there, we were talking about the MCC scorecard, right? With all these things going on, President Bouaka, and when we fail, the reflection is on President Bouaka. Why is he not thinking about the big picture? Well, he's getting involved in this small children fight.
Yeah, but I wouldn't worry about the MCC really, and I'm really tired of people.
That money,
Yeah, but no, money, $200 million they gave us. No, that's not money. I'm just saying, we have to stop thinking about America every time we want to think about our problems.
Yeah,
people say, we gotta be scared. If they try to scare people, they're gonna put you on the this, they're gonna put you on the sanction. America will do this because you're talking. You can't put an embassy in Monrovia. We grew up in a Russian embassy in Monrovia, right on on the boulevard. And so what? This whole America thing. America will give Liberia what? They gave Ivory Coast $800 million, and they gave us $200 million. They gave $600 million to Sierra Leone and gave us what? Zero. Although we passed. So leave this MCC thing alone. Can we say, how can we? It goes also with the corruption thing. Liberians hate to take responsibility. Somebody's corrupting them. They're not accepting bribe. You say, no, they corrupt us. They give us envelope. That's why we pass these, things. So we have to, and the only thing we seem to be scared of is America. It's bad. It's, it's so bad. That was not Liberia before. That was not Liberia before, but this refugee thing got into our mind. It got into our psyche. We think as refugees in our own country. That's what's happening. We talk about MCC, talking about Liberia governance, because America will give us maybe $200 million to go waste on sand on the beach and all of that. Come on, guys.
But
That I think this
the
is
reason
Hold on,
is
Jimmy. Hold on, Jimmy.
you see
Let-
the MCC is not for me. The MCC should not even be the focus of the money that you get. But the MCC is just a reflection of how you are governing. Because if you look at the MCC indicators, there is no indicator in the MCC indicator that is owned by MCC itself. These are all indicators that are tracked by other development agencies. Government effectiveness, for instance, anti-corruption is tracked by Transparency International. So MCC just pick them to say these 20 indicators. Let's say, for instance, investing in education, investing in healthcare. So to me, winning MCC, if you govern and you do well for your people, MCC
You
will
see,
just come as it will just come seamlessly. So don't
yeah,
even focus
that's
on
my point. That's my
no,
problem. That's
no,
my
no,
whole
but
problem. This
my issue,
reference to
but
MCC, it should be Legis. It should be the Ministry of Finance and Development doing these studies for us and tell us we are progressing, we're not progressing. We have, the rule of law, we have LACC, we have to entrust ourselves. I don't give a tooth about,
Dr. Duque, that's not a
I
place.
give an example. The World Bank said in 2011 that Tunisia was a model of development on the continent. 2 months later, when the revolution happened, and they said it was a debt, they had more debt than any country in Africa. So let's start playing these games with people's mind, these models that don't work.
No,
The references
Dr.
that don't
Duque,
make
I
sense
think
to
you're missing
nobody.
the point, right?
but yeah, let me come in 1 minute.
Yeah,
What
please,
Duke is
30 seconds.
what Duke is saying? I only need 30 seconds. And Tom, you need to hear this. We are subscribing to the dictates of the IMF, the World Bank, and the US.
But
They
who
are
are
not
the ones that is telling us whether we are growing or not growing? I mean, it shouldn't come to this
No,
point.
don't listen to that. I'm telling you that
Yeah.
their measures, their metrics that they are using are not applicable all the time. They're using a
I
general
agree,
metric.
but that argument has a place.
They're using a general metric that may not apply to us. We have to have a custom solution for ourselves and not allow this flaunting of little aid to determine what we want to do. It's been we've studied this thing, and we understood it a long time ago before Tabata were killed. We understood it, but today we're still following the same.
And then you get people, you come, you
All
do,
right, all right.
you,
No,
you know, you do your PhD. No, let me
move.
say, Dennis,
No, I wanted Tom to
10
say, then
seconds,
we
10
move
seconds,
on.
10 seconds. The guy does his PhD at Harvard, goes home, become minister. And they say, we're going to send you an advisor. And they're going to send him a small graduate from some backward college and say, you're going to be advisor to the minister. I have seen it. I have seen it happen. And that's supposed to be somebody who just come out of college, never worked anywhere, ever. But because she filled an application or he filled an application and got a job and say, okay, go to Liberia, go and be advisor to the Minister of Finance and Agriculture. He's Liberian, born in Liberia, went to school at Harvard. He knows everything about his country. But the little guy getting paid $10,000, $15,000 to watch him every day, to report on him.
Yeah. I think we are picking and choosing, but let's move on.
Oh yeah, I pick and choose.
Right. It's like when it comes on the other side, we say, no, let us not deal with them. Then when it comes, but I want us to move on to the Tweah case.
yeah, I just
Tom,
want my point is whether there is MCC out there or not, it is the responsibility of the government to invest in the education of its citizens. So these are things that we already should be doing.
Yeah.
Whether there is MCC out there or not, the government needs to make sure that corruption is reduced. Whether there is MCC or World Bank or IMF, we need to make sure that our fiscal policies, our trade policies are in place. What I'm saying is that this other framework is just set up to see what you are doing. If you do well for your people, you pass. If you don't do well, you don't pass. So our focus should not even be on MCC. We should do what we
mind. Get off my mind. Let me do my thing.
Improve the governance system that we have here, and then they will say out there and score us. So it really doesn't matter.
I think I want to intervene on the sound of Dr. Duke.
No, I want us to move on, lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, let us move on. are we doing? Are we if we are not putting political prisoner in jail? I want to kind of rephrase Tom's point. If you don't have political prisoner in jail, whether MCC's call you or not, we are good.
Yeah,
Are we
good.
doing it or not? Let's do it. Bottom line.
Yeah, but
Whether it's MCC or not, let's do it. So MCC is just a icing to say, okay, you're doing what you're supposed to do. We're going to give you a check.
But in many instances, what they ask you to do may not even be good for your country.
In this case,
like for example, under the early regime, a lot of the institutions that they push burden all with expenses without the necessary benefits. For example, I work with Governance Commission. They got 5 commissioners that are making equivalent to minister salary. Tell me, what is the benefit to Liberia for Governance Commission?
Let me tell you.
No. I wanted to go ahead.
No,
I just giving an example. But you could go to a lot of other places like Watson Commission and a whole bunch of other places. So the money that we should be using, to promote IT, to promote education, roads, infrastructure, and other things, we are paying salaries because we have a whole bunch of bureaucratic structures. And because it was advised by IMF and World Bank, and they told us it was good for us, and we just swallow it without critically analyzing it. So in a lot of instances, the advice can be counterproductive to our developmental needs.
Good commission was not from IMF, though.
It was not from IMF. It came from the Accra Peace Accord.
Yeah.
It came from the Accra Peace Accord.
It doesn't have to last. It could be a temporary commission. It could have been a commission dedicated to 2 or 3 years, and you shut it down. You didn't have to continue with it. If it's not functional, that money that we're using, right, could pave road. Okay? That money that we're using could introduce vocational education across.
Okay.
So
let's keep it there. Let's hold it there. Go to our last point. With time is fast spent. Before Tom is in Monrovia, before the data runs out.
Yeah, you're not making it tough talking to us, though. The point that we need to argue, then we can just pass on the level.
Yeah, let's go. Let's argue on the last point. The last point here is does the government actually have a case against Samuel Tweah and the other people? And why are they delaying to go to court? Now, Judge Blamo Dixon gave them 72 hours. Say, any evidence you have against the people, present it. Why are you wasting time? The first time when we call you, you say there was workshop in Buchanan, there where you were going, so you were not coming. They have challenged the bond. Is a bond that, hey, this is not real. And then when they call them to court, they have some excuse. Oh, we are doing some. There's another case that we are going, and we don't have enough lawyers to attend to this case. Let me start with the lawyer, Anthony Freeman.
Yeah, that evidence they are talking about is not really the trial.
Yeah, you give them evidence.
It's not a trial
to defend.
When you do the indictment, you lay out your case, you lay out your witnesses, you lay out the instrument, the evidence that you have, you give it to the other side so that they can prepare for trial.
Right.
Apparently, they have not given those documents to the other side so that they can prepare for trial.
And why is that?
Because, like I said, sometimes the technical people, like the lawyers, they allow the politicians to tell them what to do and how to do it. If I'm a county attorney and I know this case is not ready to go to court, I'm not going to carry it to court and be embarrassed there, because when you go to court and you don't have what you need to have, you look stupid in court, right? The judge is asking you, you are standing there fumbling and stuff like that. So I believe maybe they needed to accumulate additional evidence. But at that time, Waka was struggling politically. He needed to score some points. So he said, wow, it would be a nice thing if I can put Samuel Tweah in jail. So he grabbed his lawyer and said, man, you look for something, found some charges and put it on Tweah. And that's what they did. So they have not laid out a proper case yet to go to court, and now they go to court. How can you a prosecutor go to court and the judge is telling you go bring the evidence? The evidence is the first thing that will be in front of you before you even go to court. So that's the point. I doubt that it's going to go well for them, because when you're starting at this level, where even the fundamental preliminary evidence, you're not furnishing the other side, and it's the same thing, the other side is supposed to furnish all the information to the other side, so that when you go to court, you know what we say, there is no secret. Everything is open, it's on the table. You have all my documents, I have all your documents, and then now we go into legal battle. But it seems that they have not furnished the other side with their documents, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah, but Freeman, isn't that typical? Isn't that what we've been seeing happen again and again with criminal cases, with drug-related cases, that they have not done their due diligence to go and prosecute properly? That's why people go free, scot-free. I look at the Gloria Musu case. No, nothing has happened. They have no evidence of what happened to that little girl. Isn't there? Don't we see this as a regular practice in our legal system, that the government is failing each and every time to properly prosecute or at least give the proper diligence required to prosecute a case? We're seeing this all the time. Yeah, Freeman, is there something inherently wrong with our legal system?
Yeah, when you look at it from a systemic standpoint, in a lot of countries, the Department of Prosecution, they're kind of independent. But if you look at Liberia situation, the president appoints the county attorneys, the president appoints the solicitor general, and the president can remove them any day. So when you put a law officer in that situation, he is almost always going to bend over backward to accommodate political views. Because of course, if he doesn't accommodate political views, the next day he will hear a name on the air that he has been removed. So it's a structural issue that the prosecutors, they need a certain level of independence. Probably we have to go by way of contract and some level of security for them. Because if they are serving at the will and pleasure, I can tell you, because this is what we've been seeing from that, and not now.
Wait, now, are you saying there should be tenure?
Yes, that's what that's my view. Yes, that's my view. I mean, it may not be a popular view. I mean, that's my view, right? Because you don't want a person who making decision on law issues to be weighing political question, to be weighing whether or not if he pursue a case against the president's friend, whether he will have a job tomorrow. You don't want that. But that's not what we have. What we have now is all our prosecutors from the lowest level county attorney to the solicitor general, they all serve at the will and pleasure of the president. So every time they have to do their legal job, they have to think, what will the president think? Will this annoy the president? Will this make the president feel happy? And they do that calculation and they lean on the side of political people. And at the end of the day, when you make your work over political, you fall back on the legal part of it. That's why you see, why would a lawyer go to court? Because like I said, you build your case, you have your evidence, you have your witnesses, you line it up, you serve the other side a copy of it, okay? Before the case starts. Why wouldn't they serve the other side a copy of their document? Why should the judge tell you to bring it? No judge need to tell you to bring that. So for me, when you look at it from a structural standpoint, that is some of the problem we have. That's why you see in this country, there's some level of independence when it comes to the Department of Justice and the how do you call it, or state attorney general and all of that. They have some level of independence from the regular government.
Could they like hire special prosecutors like they do here? Like when you have
they can even do that. They can even do that, but they don't. So now it's like they do this thing. So, like for example, even we're not discussing this case, but why would a lawyer, knowing, for example, in the case of the extradition thing we're talking about, that you can't just extradite somebody without a court involvement, but the lawyer will know it and still grab a person and send him out of the country without the court involvement because he has to satisfy the political masters. And if he doesn't, the next day he will be out of job. That is the fundamental problem we have with the law enforcement in Liberia.
Mr. Gibson, we have seen other cases, right? But for this particular case, I mean, we have people that were already on sanction list. That could be like a low-hanging fruit, but the government chose to prosecute this other case. So why are they really dragging to provide the evidence that they are being asked?
I mean, at this point, I'm a bit skeptical on if they even have evidence. Because if you have evidence, why not produce it, right? Why have all of these different excuses if the court is calling for that, the judge is calling for you to produce that, right? Back to what Attorney Freeman was saying about them wanting to have quick wins. This administration, from what I've been seeing, is a lot of push and stop. You push something to see if it'll stick, and then you stop immediately. And also, if they have the evidence, also from him being put on the sanctions, right? If there's evidence that's there that the Americans can provide, why not reach out to those folks and get that and start with that piece of evidence or something to show that there is indeed, true evidence that's in your that's within your administration that you can produce to the court. I think it's all just a bunch of, we want to prove something to those that said that we wouldn't, take charge and prosecute these individuals that were of the past administration. It's just, it's not looking good in terms of that. If you have the evidence, just produce it and start the process of taking it to the courts. But yeah, I don't think they have anything at this point.
But Dennis, I thought the LACC was the one that did the case first. The case came from LACC, right?
No.
No.
This was the case with the FIU, NSA, the money they took for FIU, and they say, well, we're using this money for this other one. I think it came from
the $6 million. Uh-huh.
No, that is right. It came from the
CBL investigation.
No.
Yeah,
it
but it came from LACC.
Okay.
So if LACC submitted a case to justice, why is the problem that why isn't in a court? That makes no sense. Because it's not like the Justice Ministry just got up and said, okay, we're going to go after Tweah. It was LACC that sent the case to justice. And now justice, right. Yeah, so why do they have the paper? Well, they shouldn't have a problem with paper issues in the court.
So what's going on now? So what's going on?
Maybe the dog ate the paper.
Because the thing with NSA, taking money and say this for special operation. Yeah. Now the Bloc government is doing the same thing. Is that the fear?
That's why the dog ate the paper.
This is very serious. So for me, I love to. So let's extend this now. If we cannot prosecute $6 million case, how are we going to prosecute economic sabotage and all these things that we're setting up the World Economic Crime School for?
Thank you. We're just playing. We're not doing anything.
$6 million. Bunch of the money was LD. Maybe that even tier LD. Do the prosecution. And I don't understand how the government can struggle when we got one whole Ministry of Justice. All the human beings that over there. You can find one person to look for the evidence, you'll go and win the case.
You got two because you got LCC.
But do they want to win?
The other issue is that LACC has direct prosecutorial power now. The new LACC, it has prosecutorial power. Why are they passing the case through Ministry of Justice? We passed that age.
Well, it's coordination because what happened, even though they have direct, but Ministry of Justice is like the overall. So sometimes you kind of share the case with them. You probably get the opinion because they'll probably be part of it, so it happens. But I just feel like the lawyers were not prepared to take this case forward, and for political reasons, they took it forward.
The lawyers are under somebody; they are not on their own, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the inefficiency what we see in the Justice Department is replicated in every industry, every ministry. We have inefficiencies all over. It's just that it's so blatant in the Justice Ministry. But in the road production, in technical, in the electric, LEC, telecommunication, we see the same inefficiency. I can tell you as a technocrat, we see the same inefficiency, just the same as in the Justice Department. There's nothing to change the trajectory we're on, because it has to be done with authenticity and sincerity. And right now, it's all about politics. As Duke would say, why getting?
And here's the thing, Dennis, you can have a superseding indictment. So you can draw up an indictment and then you miss out some things. You can pull it from the court and then beef it up and come back. Because once the trial has not been heard and you have not like brought evidence in trial, you can always start our case over. So if for any reason they believe that the case they left out some crucial evidence, pull it out, beef the case up, and then come back. But it looks foolish as a prosecutor to go to court and somebody tell you bring evidence. Because the first reason you go to court is because you have evidence.
Hello.
So,
Hello. That's it.
Yeah. So pull it out of the court, beef it up, and then go take it back. There's no problem with it.
So what happened if the 72 hours given by Judge Dixon,
or the judge will throw it out? Well, it will not be final, because if the judge throw it out before the hearing of the evidence, it can come back. The only time the case can come back if the evidence is heard in court, is contested, then it can come back. But if the judge throws it out prior to them contesting the evidence in court, then it can come back.
And talking about the LACC, there's another case, right? The alleged bribery case in the House. What's the LACC doing with it? Tom, you're in Monrovia, but you can't hear. Those of us waiting.
I don't even hear about it. I don't even hear about it. It's swept under the rug.
I think they are waiting for the speaker issue to be resolved.
I tell you what. The CDC regime totally damaged LACC. When they did that restructuring, first the LACC lacked resources. Then it went from 5 commissioners to 7 commissioners. So you gobbling up all LACC resources, divided it among 7 big shots, and you barely got prosecutor and investigator to pursue the actual job. The second thing, they strip away the LACC ability, for example, to freeze assets. And when you're in financial crimes cases, one of the first things you try to do is to freeze the assets, because you don't want the judge to rule and then there's no access to seize. So they water down the LACC. So the LACC now is like a parliament. I mean, you have 7 people over there arguing which way to go. They're more concerned about collecting the money. Ask investigators, they don't have resources to work with. So LACC is just there, just to say they have LACC, and that is why George Buchanan wanted. That's why they restructured the LACC and did it that way so that the LACC can be dysfunctional.
Yeah, somebody whispering in my ear say, Anthony Freeman, you can talk about John Weah anymore. This is now Buaka to fix. But ladies and gentlemen, this is Tough Talking Thursday. 605-313-6004 is the number to call. The code is 791-403#. Call that number. Let's hear from you. My panelists, they finish saying their own. We want to hear from you. That's the number to call. As we wait for our callers to come in, why don't we do our Tabata session? Attorney Freeman, what's your Tabata of the week?
Well, I guess when it comes to the Tabata of the week, I would just have to go with the drama in the House. Eventually, I knew, obviously, that these guys, because the parliament is all about quorum. The group that can convene a quorum, eventually the other guys were going to go there. So the other guys were playing hardball. But when those guys decided they were not going to back down, you saw them dripping and now going to. So, like, what the thing that bro can say? And you say you were thrown, you're retreating. So that's why they're doing that. They're all retreating, because eventually they realize, wherever the majority is in the parliamentary system, that's it. That's where everything is. You stay out, you lose.
Tom, what's your Tabata of the week?
Where the Samuel Tweah case. If now you want to prosecute Samuel Tweah in this country, who else can you prosecute? So the minister of justice really did or do well and push that case forward. If they're going to conclude it, let them conclude it. But the whole delay tactics were in Buchanan, were in Ganta, it doesn't make sense to me at all.
Jimmy, your Tabata of the week.
I mean, it's obvious. We got two speakers, two deputies. I mean, why? Why are we taking this course? It's ridiculous. But you know what we're going through is a political struggle. This is a power struggle. We're taking it for granted, but there's a power struggle that is going on. It started from the beginning of this year, and now we're seeing the end of it. So you may win today, but it has its ramifications later on in your governance. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Mine will also be the House, the new speaker, I guess, that was elected today, or that was not even voted on, but just agreed upon by everybody. That was, a very laughable matter. But yeah, that's my top for the day.
Dr. Dugley.
Hey, for the first time, the Republic of Liberia has two speakers. Tonight, two men will be sleeping in Monrovia. Both of them say, I'm a speaker. So that's the Tabata, right? It's politics. Just like Jimmy says, it's a big political game. Let's watch it. Let the lawyers fight in court. Let it get to the Supreme Court, back to the media. And then, after all, Baka will have his speaker. And then we'll see what he does with it.
If you are watching, please comment on your Tabata. My Tabata is the minister going to the talking about the budget and say, now civil servant will be paid not less than 150. We are time they didn't do it. So when the weird one, when you put it there, I say, do you have to go there? Now Samuel Tweah came by and said, no, that's not true. I believe that's Tabata. I want for Minister Gafuan, let's boast about decreasing unemployment, those kind of things. Not about the minimum pay. After all, that minimum pay, Attorney Freeman did the math. It would take how many years?
It would take 50. It will take 56 years for them to make the salary that the senator making. That means they have to die and come back and continue the working. I mean, it's so sad because the resources of the country belongs to everybody. Why should a handful of people just seize about 95% of the resources consuming and then throw 5% to the rest of the population? It's unconscionable.
It's called elitism. It's called elitism, Wonder.
It's terrible.
It's elite. That's elitism. That's the same thing they revolted against. It's the same elitism we practice.
Yeah, that's why it is. There's nothing else. No other way to describe it. That's why it is.
You know, Franz Fanon said, you repeat what you've been taught.
Yeah.
Sam Wallace said, Mathematics of the week.
Now they got the budget up. They are not disclosing what these big shots are making. They're not disclosing it. They need to tell us who all work in the government, how much money are they making. And it should be a function of what the people at the lower level making. It can't be an arbitrary sum. It has to be a function of what people at the bottom making. Because at the end of the day, the resources of the country belong to everybody. Not just because you are senator or you minister.
That's fine.
So that's why we are told now more of the liberal order.
All right. Sam Wallace says Tabata is a former speaker. He called him former speaker being outsmarted and outmaneuvered by those he underestimated. He beat Rachel Kuhn before. Now Rachel Kuhn take Konasa to be speaker. That's a shame.
Rachel Kuhn came out with cash.
All right. Let's bring in our callers here. The first caller is Trogon Bayu. Hey, nigga. You are live.
How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing great.
Everyone. Good. First of all, before I go ahead, let me give my topic of the week. My topic of the week is when Dr. Duke said the door hit the evidence. So that's my topic of the week. If you told somebody to quote it, you can't produce evidence and what's the essence of to give someone to quote. But I want to say something here real quick because I know you got a lot of callers tonight. The first thing I want to say is we see the response that I getting from the panelists to make a little bit disappointing, especially when it comes to the issue of the speaker when Dr. Duque and one of my best colleagues on your show there, Safrima. I love listening to you guys when they say that no matter whatever the speaker happen to do, it'll just be for nothing. The dash of the cast, he's going to be removed. The speaker is not refusing to be removed from office. What he's trying to do is to set up for the father of law, of law and order. He just wants it to be done through the proper means. I think that's why he's advocating. If the guy can go through the proper means and remove him, that'll be fine. And then the second thing here is that a year Dr. Duque kind of bending over backward, always support this administration. And I just want to say to my good friend, man, look, sometimes it's good to step by and look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, do I have to really put my character on the line for what is going on in this country? Because you sold this president to us, Liberians. You said this man will work in government for 42 years. He got the experience. He was going to do everything right. We was a disaster president. Now, when it came upon a time when this administration was in its second term, when you came back and you told us, you said, oh, the administration will present a development plan. We said, when? You say, coming, it will come. Now, tonight again, you telling us, say they are working on it, it will come. Come on, Dr. Duque, come on. Step back for 1 second, my friend. I think you're bringing over back on about this administration. You know, so that's all I wanted to say to that.
Thank you. Let me bring on Mr. Evans Morris. Evans, you're live.
All right. Thank you, Mr. John, and hello to the panelists. Look, I just want to say this, you know, when I hear people like Dr. Sam Wallow applauding the majority bloc, you know, first of all, my Tabata is, you know, Nabwekun standing there in Kosu looking at Beaufort taking oath to be Speaker of the House, when you know that you don't got a number and you want that position so bad so you can get a brand new card to do the show off. I mean, it's complete Tabata of the highest honor. But you have terrorism in the country. When you have people who are trying to be political brutes, trying to strong arm the speakership away from Fanatic Koffa without following the rules, it tells us that Joseph Boakai is inherently desperate to have complete power in Liberia. And you know what power does to a man when you have complete power? It corrupts his mind completely. And once he gets that speakership, forget it. You will see Joseph Boakai on 5G, and he will start doing things that nobody thought would even come from somebody like Joseph Boakai. So he wanted at all costs. So when people say that CDC want their cone to be speaker, people want his very panel was saying it makes some of us angry because we know we're not stupid people. You can look at us and insult us and tell us,
you're not CDC, man. Stop pretending.
What we're saying with our eyes is a lie. We knew that Joseph Boakai would be behind it. The man you prefer is the man who they pick, you know, is sworn into the quote unquote to be speaker. But last time, let me say this: when it comes to the 12 kids, look, Mr. Freeman is a lawyer, he's an expert. Of course, in America, you go to Discovery. You get a traffic teacher, you go to the lawyer, will tell you, let's look at it, you go talk to the prosecutor, they say, okay, here's the evidence, or say, the lawyer come and say, well, they got the evidence. So, well, I mean, let that plea, the case is not so, you know, community cell, whatever. But if you're telling me the government don't have the evidence on hand, and they can't show it to the defendant, you know, so that they can try to address this case the best way possible. I mean, you can go to court with surprise evidence. I mean, everybody knows that. You can go to court and start saying, like we're watching the movie, somebody bring a piece of paper and say, oh, Your Honor, I just got a breaking news. So that's how it works. The person has to see all your evidence you have before you present it to the judge. So I think this is just a funny situation that Senator is going to go free, at least on this case, and then maybe the government will try to genius something to find him guilty.
Thank you.
But overall, we're just disheartened by this, by this government. Joseph Boakai, let me just give you one secret about Joseph Boakai. Even though I say he's a mafia boss, but he's doing it to a T. Every time something happening in that country, that Boakai will be going to the country. Every time, some kind of Tabata coming having behind him, he will leave the country and watch it from afar. When you try to remove it, you in Italy. When the yellow machine will happen in America the conference. Anything something happening, you lead the country. So just watch it.
How about the scholarship?
Maybe Jeremiah will come over showing. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. You really want to talk Tabata now, so J. Victor Nawe, you are next.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, okay. Hey, how you guys doing, man? Great insight as always. Great show. So my topic of the week obviously will be Necotech. So, I know we'll talk more about that. But listen, I'm calling in tonight because I like Councilor Freeman a lot. I like his analysis. I think he's a very brilliant legal mind. But I'm just kind of disappointed on his stance on this whole speaker removal thing. I really think as a legal person, he should be advocating for respecting the rule of law. I don't think this thing is about numbers. It is not about numbers. They don't have the numbers. Koffa doesn't have the numbers. Nobody has the numbers. The last time I checked, they disrupted the free, normal activities at the Capitol building to remove Koffa. Not Koffa. Koffa did not disrupt the normal activities at the Capitol building, but they don't have the numbers.
They have the
numbers.
They have the number to hold meetings, right? The majority.
They don't have the number to remove him. We don't talk about meetings and all of that. The whole problem that is stalling the whole activities at the Capitol building is the removal of Koffa. It's not about meetings.
Okay.
It's not about meetings. It is the removal of Koffa that stalled everything at the Capitol building. And I'm very disappointed that he continues to come on and talk about numbers and numbers. This is not about numbers. This is about normalizing extrajudicial means to go after your pipe dreams. The whole UP establishment, they broke Kun. Kun was beat hands down. They couldn't get that through the normal democratic process. And now they're staging a coup in the Capitol building. That's what we should be concerned about. If they can remove Koffa today without a vote, without a due process, they will remove Freeman tomorrow when he becomes speaker. That's what we should be concerned about. This is not about Koffa. It's not about Kun. It's not about anybody. It's about respecting the rule of law. What the law says is what should be done. So, I appreciate him most of the time when he's on the show. All the time except for on this particular point.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but great show. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. These are all the callers we have tonight. We're going to be drawing down the curtains now and let's go around the horn for your closing. Tom, you in Moromio, I want to err on the side of caution.
How many minutes to close?
Tom got 2 minutes. You got 1.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all the time to try about all the laws. The sum of he won't find me. But good show. I think we should get back to the budget and really open it and go through the numbers. Today was just an overview on the speaker issue. I mean, two sides to it. The legal side is there, the political side is there. So I think when you discuss the two, sometimes people get confused as to which one you are leaning towards. But definitely, it's a two-sided issue. One legal, one political. So we'll see how that moves on in the next couple of days. On the issue of the Tweah case, I think the Justice Ministry should start to pursue it, because the way I see it is that this is a $6 million small amount. If you don't get it right in this case, any other one you go against those defendants, it becomes an issue of which one. They will interpret it as which one. So you gather all your evidence, go with your full force and see how you can close that case. Good show. We look forward to the next one where we'll come to discuss other issues. So I turn it back to you guys. I'm going to bed.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Yeah, as always, great show. Thank you for extending the invitation to me. It's always a lot to talk about every Thursday when these conversations come up. I wish to see a resolve when it comes to this whole matter with the House fiasco. There's a lot of things that needs to be accomplished as far as the budget being submitted to the proper area that it needs to for correspondence with the Senate as well. I think they need to stop all this wrangling that's happening and just get back to work. You know, the politics will always be at play, but ultimately, the work of the people need to be done, and that's what they need to keep in mind as they continue to move forward with this whole thing. Um, and then lastly, as far as the GOL in the situation with Samuel Tweah, if you don't have evidence at this point, what's the true, you know, meaning of you taking this to court? Either you produce the evidence within the 72 hours the judge has granted you, or you just bow out of this case and you know, lick your wounds and go in silence. But as always, it's great to be a part of the discussion. I look forward to the next one, and thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention, you know, we always in Labro we like this. We like to talk trial, right? So somebody say Southeastern are really fighting for Koffa, and the person forget to know that both Koffa and Kun are from the same Southeast. And then there is another one from. I just want to see the one of ethnic group. You know, we so you say, oh, there's anyway. Anthony Freeman, go ahead. Your closing, sir.
Okay, so we have three branches of government. In the judiciary is law, 100%. In the executive is law, is policy, and mostly administrative law. When you come to the legislature, the parliament, it is mostly politics with a little bit of maybe constitutional law, but it's mostly politics. So when you see me come here and tell you that the Supreme Court will give Funati maybe some legal victories, but the fundamental political question, they will not give it to him, because the fundamental political question in the House regarding leadership is a political question. And it's not a question that the court has the necessary wherewithal to solve. Let them try it. Maybe they will be successful. I wish them good luck. On the issue of the Tweah case, I really think some things were not done correctly, because I still believe that George Weah and NSA, EPS, all these guys exploited the NSA, and they took millions. As my last tabulation, I know that they took at least 176 million from the CBA audit that they have not accounted for. So I think there is a case to be answered. But look, when you take a case to court and you don't have all the things you have, pull it out and reformulate your case. There's nothing stops you from bringing the case back. But it's embarrassing as a professional to go to court and people tell you where's the evidence, and then you turn it around looking. So let them put it out and reconstitute the case, and then they can go back with it. I would like to stop on that note.
Dr. Dugwe.
Yes, Dennis, thank you. Great show, and I think we covered a lot of space. You know, about the speaker thing, people think when you talk about the political aspect of it, I'm not interested in the petty legal tricks. I'm not sure that this, you know, saying, oh, this is how you remove the speaker, this is not how you remove it, it's going to save democracy in Liberia. That's not it. I look at the political end game, and the political end game of this whole process is that Funati is going to be removed. The longer they fight in court, the longer the state business are left aside. So we should start playing with these things. You know, people say, "Oh yeah, I know Funati. I've known Funati. It was Funati and I who organized with the Bromskin friend, the Friends of Bromskin, the first Liberian Leadership Conference in the U.S. back in 1993, and that was followed by another conference in Ouagadougou, where we turned Blaze Camp. So I've known this guy. We worked together very intimately, very closely on these conferences. So, but he knows as a lawyer that this is the end of the game. And in politics, you got to know where the power lies. And in the assembly, in the House, the power lies in the numbers. You can tweak it, you can tweak it, you can tweak it as you want to, but you come back to the numbers. So nobody is saying, oh yeah, Funati is bad. Oh, you know, nobody is happy that this is going on. Nobody is happy that it's going on, but it's going on. And we have to be realistic enough to see the end game. What is the end game of it? Politically, how does it serve the nation? Does it serve the nation that they go to Supreme Court for 2 months, back and forth? And then we know Fonati is going to fall anyway, because it doesn't have, 49. You got one half of your house is against you. Hey, I'm a man. I would say, thank you guys. I'm gone. About the budget, I like what Thomas tried to teach us, the technical people, all that. But I look at the numbers. I look at the politics. And I say, hey, you give agriculture. Where give agriculture more money than you did. And he gave more money to LU than you did. So you took those money that were the surplus that you thought were in LU and agriculture, you give it to the president and the vice president. That's not good politics. That's what we look at as political people. We don't look at who's behind it, what is science behind this and that. No, we see the numbers. For Tweah, the dog ate the papers, so let it go sleep.
Jimmy.
Okay, good show. I enjoy a lot of points tonight, but there are some things I just can't. I find it baffling. I mean, we talking about 100 and some more million being used by the NSA and not accounted for. These amounts. It's only this is a new era where people can steal this amount of money. And not much comes out of it. I think Liberia is we're looking at things from a different angle now, and it's a pity that we can't take care of the basics. And the basics. I'm talking about LU. I'm talking about healthcare. I'm talking about just agriculture. Just the basics. All the money that we're stealing, it's a pity. But when it comes to the saga at the house, let's face it, Fonati has his own questions to answer. We never delved into that, but Fonati's been doing his own thing, and the politics that he's facing now, he's delved it out before, so it's all politics. But my problem, again, has been, are we Liberians benefiting from all this? Are we getting the best what we can get? And if we don't address the corruption and the various misbehaviors that's going on, we will never get the best. And we will just have to live with this. So it's in our future to deal with the corruption the way we should deal with it, and not sweep it under the rug like how it's being done.
Dennis?
Yes, sir.
Our colleague panelist asked a question that was so interesting. He made a point that was interesting. He said the guys don't have the numbers, and Fonati also doesn't have the numbers. So I was wondering, where have the numbers gone?
In between.
In the budget.
The number was split up.
The numbers in the budget, right? Because you have $1.3 million for Speaker office. Come on. So they are the numbers.
But he's offering. They said that these guys employ between 70 and 60 to 70 people in their offices. I said, what do they do?
Yeah. The vice president office has 150.
Yeah, what do they do?
Because they don't have a policy, clear-cut policy. And that's why I was telling Thomas that I have been part of that process. We don't have a clear-cut policy. If there's a clear-cut policy, there is no way for example the vice president budget will exceed the president budget.
Yeah, how that makes sense?
It's inconceivable. But they're just playing with figures, and eventually that's what you see. How is it possible for the vice president budget to exceed the president budget? In what country?
No, maybe
how do you
spend the money someplace else. Maybe
it's not possible. It's just not possible because our president has 3 functions and all of them in one. So he's like the head of state, the head of government, and everything. He's the chief foreign affairs person.
Minister of State.
Yes. So there's no way the vice president budget can exceed the president budget. That is because there is no systematic way they are approaching the budget. So any kind of funny thing, for example, why would Ministry of State have more money than Agriculture Ministry? So which science is that, Thomas? Which science? Because I don't know which science is that.
Okay, let's start the show over. So when we look at this, when we look at these ministries, some of these ministries have some sources of funding that is not actually in the budget. You see the agriculture sector, you have USAID, you have IFAD, you have World Bank loans that goes to the agriculture sector, and we have to pay these resources. Even quite recently, the minister was talking about it. So right now, what they have started to do with the budget is to even have an annex to say agriculture, okay, we are giving you 8 million, but here is a $25 million project that is in the cocoa sector. Here is a $20 million project that is in the rice sector, and we have to pay on those loans. So not all the support that goes into investing in the economy is on budget. There are some that are off budget, but we have to pay because they are coming through loans.
Yeah, but then it needs to be recorded as loan. It's Tom.
That's just what we're about to say.
One second. It's in the debt statistics, but it is not the expenditure is not going through the budget, so you can't pull it as an expenditure under the Ministry of Agriculture. That's the point I'm making. But on the debt, it's recorded as debt. This is why when you go through debt, is there.
There is no one side entry, Thomas. There's always two sides to an entry. If one side is a debt, there will be an asset on the other side. So there's no one side entry.
No, you can't just record it as debt and then don't record it as expenditure.
There's always double entry.
No, the expenditure are in the projects. They are in the project, so you have this.
Okay, I get your case. But for me, to be frank with you, the idea that places like NSA, EPS, Ministry of State, if those places have more money than agriculture and other vital area, that budget doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you.
And I also believe that at this point in time, Mr. Bwaka and his people need to tell all the salary structure of all the people working for the government. We don't need to guess it anymore because we need to compare it with what the people at the bottom getting so that we know whether the distribution is fair.
I said earlier that the problem in the country is that our expenditure is not efficient. What I say is what you're just explaining. We are putting money to places that don't give us return, that are already established.
Okay.
They don't give us return.
I agree with that.
I mean, since the Civil War ended, we're just paying people salaries. That's just the fact of our budget. Even this is 800 million, over 300 million is paying salary. And then when the Minister of Finance and everybody goes out there, the only question you get from journalists is the bread and butter issue. When civil servants getting paid. So in the end, we just pay taxes to pay salaries. And then the remaining one will buy scratch car and buy fuel for the cars to move. That's just the way our expenditure is looking. And that's the bigger problem.
So
gentlemen, thank you so much for tonight. I know Tom wants us to have a new show. And Cornetti wants us to have a new show. But let's end it here. Come back tomorrow.
Thursday.
At 7 for Friday night debate.
No, I wouldn't be off.
On that note, we're going to close with a song that says, whether you support Funati or you support Kun, we are all Liberians.
We support the rule of law.
Have a good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.